hours of peace per day, a Russian promise to relieve besieged populations in Syria's eastern Aleppo.
From 1000 to 1300 local time, humanitarian windows will be introduced during which all military hostilities, aviation strikes and artillery fire will be halted. Taking into account the current conditions, we are prepared to, in cooperation with the Syrian authorities, ensure for all interest organizations safe passage of humanitarian aid for the people of Aleppo.
In eastern Aleppo, which is under rebel control, about 250,000 people have been trapped since the area came under siege in early July. Daily bombings by Russian and Syrian air forces have ravaged rebel-held areas of Syria for months, leaving thousands of people in desperate need of food and medical supplies. The United Nations said it would consider the Russian plan, but that the humanitarian needs in Aleppo exceeded a simple 3-hour ceasefire.
To meet that capacity of need, you need 2 lanes and you need to have about 48 hours to get sufficient trucks in.
The UN has warned that civilians are at grave risk of water shortages and disease as fighting intensifies in what was Syria's most populous city before the conflict began. Up to 2 million people have been without running water for the past 4 days.
Good evening, I'm Rena 9, and at least 2 people are dead as historic floods slam the deep south. Over 1.5 feet of rain has fallen in parts of Louisiana, which is under a state of emergency. More than 1,000 have been rescued. There's also flooding in Mississippi and Alabama. We begin with Omar Villafranca in Hammond, Louisiana.
Do you have something? Yeah. Rescue crews spent the day searching for people who may have been swept away in the floodwater. They came across this car just in time, saving a woman and her dog from drowning.
I got your dog. Oh!
National Guardsmen on boats, trucks, and helicopters have helped more than 1,000 stranded pets and people. Governor John Bell Edwards says many who should have evacuated did not. Some are risking their lives on flooded roads.
It really doesn't take much depth of the water if it's moving quickly to wash your vehicle off the road.
Among the dead, a 68-year-old man who drowned while trying to escape the rising waters.
Me and my son and another guy tried to get him, but it was too late.
Has the water gone down any?
It looks like about 6 to 8 inches from what I can tell.
Jeannie McAndrew Holmes has to wade through waist-high water to get to her home in Hammond. She's still cleaning up from a flood in March where she barely got a chance to save her most cherished possession.
And I grabbed a big Rubbermaid and threw as many photos into it as I could. And this is where I get a little emotional. I mean, your pictures are everything. You don't replace pictures. And so that was the one thing that, I hate to say come hell or high water, but that was coming with us.
And with more rain to come, the flooding could get worse. Rivers are expected to break previous records by several feet.
It is going to spread out very, very wide, and you're going to see homes flood that have never, ever flooded before.
Governor John Bell Edwards plans to tour the flooded area. Rena, residents here are hoping some of the street flooding drains off before the next round of rain comes through.
Omar Villafranca covering the flooding in the south. Thanks so much.
Following days of rain and no let-up Saturday, Louisiana is operating under a state of emergency.
As of right now, well over 1,000 people rescued, not just from their homes, but from their vehicles. Some people not even from their vehicles. They've been clinging to trees and other things like this in swift-moving floodwaters.
Our number one public safety message is to tell people to stay home. If you don't need to be out, if you're high and dry in a safe place, stay there.
The National Weather Service says starting Friday, 6 to 10 inches of rain fell on parts of Louisiana, with perhaps another 4 to 6 inches possible by Saturday afternoon. The heavy rains and flooding forced Governor Edwards and his family out of the governor's mansion, a first, he said, while many others are spending the weekend in shelters.
We tried out the back door, there were spiders, and then we tried out the kitchen, there was a snake. So then we fought through that and then finally got in the car.
Mississippi and Alabama have also been struggling with heavy rainfall, and as the storm system continues to move slowly to the west, a flood watch for southwest Louisiana is in effect until Sunday afternoon. Ned Barker, The Associated Press.
Body cams and background music. The Army of Conquest have made a production out of their arrival. They posted this video online. The coalition of jihadists and Islamist rebels aims to show it has managed to retake strategic parts of Aleppo from Bashar al-Assad's forces.
With the help of God, the artillery academy was completely liberated, as was the College of Armaments.
They say this victory has enabled them to break the regime's siege. Assad's troops had cut off all access to rebel-held areas in the east. Earlier, the Syrian Observatory of Human Rights confirmed the rebels' advance on the military academy. This is a significant turnaround in the struggle for control of Syria's second biggest city. But the fighting is far from over. Assad's forces have launched a counterattack and they are bombing the new rebel positions. In less than a week, more than 500 fighters from all sides have allegedly been killed in the battle for Aleppo.
Well, health officials say 3 more people in Florida have tested positive for locally transmitted Zika, bringing the total to at least 28. One of the new cases is outside the so-called Zika zone, and that has residents and authorities concerned the outbreak area could be expanding. Marley Hall is here with the latest.
Rena, Florida officials say they're investigating that new Zika case that was identified outside the Miami neighborhood of Wynwood, where mosquitoes have spread the virus to over 24 people. The Florida Department of Health says the case occurred nearby, somewhere in Miami-Dade County. It hasn't released any other details about the location or the patient, but we do know investigators and mosquito control inspectors will be working in that area. The health department says at this point there is no evidence of active transmissions outside Miami's 1 square mile Zika zone. Another area where locally transmitted cases of Zika have become a major concern, Puerto Rico. The Obama administration announced yesterday that the U.S. territory is under a health state of emergency as a result of the outbreak there. Puerto Rico reported nearly 2,000 new cases in the past week and more than 10,000 since December. That includes more than 1,000 pregnant women. The Zika virus has been tied to severe birth defects. The U.S. Surgeon General visited Puerto Rico earlier in the week and says he predicts a quarter of the population will be infected by the end of the year. Rena?
A quarter of the population. That's significant.
Staggering number.
And we begin with 2 major and deadly threats tonight. Dangerous heat for millions in the east and in the deep south. Historic flooding. Louisiana in a state of emergency at this hour. This is the scene near Baton Rouge. More than 2 feet of rain falling in 24 hours. Entire neighborhoods now underwater. The National Guard called in more than 1,200 rescues. Residents say they barely had time to escape. And that heat, take a look at this. The sidewalks here in New York, 136 degrees. More than 50 million Americans under a heat alert tonight. But now the biggest threat, those rivers are still rising, and they are rising fast. ABC's Philip Mena starts us off from hard-hit Baton Rouge.
Tonight, floodwaters ravaging Louisiana. And after hundreds of high water rescues, tonight some are still stranded. Emergency crews working around the clock, firefighters in waist-deep water, hoisting residents to safety.
This could have ended really badly if they didn't come and help us out.
These families escaping, taking only what they can carry.
We have lost trailers, our apartment, our house is gone under. There's nothing left, nothing.
Louisiana in a state of emergency after record torrential rainfall. The hardest hit, Livingston, drenched with 21 inches in 24 hours. At least 4 people still missing and at least 3 dead, including a man who was swept away from his home.
My son came pick us up, get us out the water, and he fell. Then me and my son and another guy tried to get him, but it was too late.
This family in Denham Springs rushing to get out of their home as the water started rising.
How quickly did the water rise here?
Like in 10 minutes.
All this happened in the last 10 minutes.
The only way in and out of the flood zone, by boat. The water rising all the way up to the window in these homes. Mailboxes barely peeking out.
To give you an idea just how deep and dangerous these waters are, look at that stop sign, that street sign, and that car right around the bend, almost completely submerged.
We coming! We coming!
We got you, man.
In Baker, Police Chief Carl Dunn working non-stop to rescue anyone he can.
Big Chief, been out here all night. You got some families to go get. Come on, ma'am. We got you. Ma'am, come on, sit back here with me.
Tonight, some residents still trapped Major highways closed and authorities urging people to stay off the road.
If the sign says road closed, it's there for a reason.
Cecilia, 2 hours ago, you could actually see the pavement in this neighborhood, and now just look at it. Residents here are evacuating as quickly as they can. There are still some here who are refusing to leave, even though the water is quickly rising. Cecilia?
An absolutely incredible scene there, Philip. Thank you.